Well, you have those people that are out there missing. They're lying out there. And then you have those that are taken. And that's what this show's about. To be honest, we need to start caring. It's not about the money. It's not about the fame. It's not about who is who. Everybody matters out there. The missing are a huge diversity of people. They're young, they're old, they're mothers, they're fathers, they're children.
Welcome, my friends. Please push subscribe and like this moment so you don't forget. Also, hit that notification bell if you would like notifications whenever I have new uploads. Okay, guys, welcome to Chasing a Murderer. I want to remind you guys that Leela, the new puppy that I have, has chewed up 3 mics. So the environment and mic sounds are going to be worse than usual. It was very hard to get this out. So MacKenzie Lueck, her story starts July 20th of 2019. Just 23 years old, disappears.
We have received a host of new information since we first brought you this story 24 hours ago. Police say MacKenzie Lueck arrived at Salt Lake City International Airport early last week.
Lueck has pleaded guilty to murder. As a result, Ayoola Ajayi will spend the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole.
It's with heavy heart that I address you today. After an exhaustive week of investigation, we are filing charges of aggravated murder, aggravated kidnapping, obstruction of justice, and desecration of a body in the homicide of MacKenzie Lueck. The man charged with these horrific and tragic crimes is the person of interest, Ayoola Ajayi. I will not be saying the killer's name again.
MacKenzie Lueck, better known to her friends as Kenzie, and we'll be referring to her as Kenzie. She grew up in El Segundo, California, which is home to about 1,600 residents. She was born 1995 to Greg and Diana Lueck, and they have a total of 4 children. MacKenzie was born as the second child, and she was the only girl. So growing up around all boys must have been an experience for Kenzie. She attended El Segundo High School, where she was also a member of the water polo team. She enjoyed to bike on the Pacific Ocean, and years later, she recreated those days when she went to college by putting on her bikini and basking in the sun that shines on a high-altitude desert in Salt Lake City. As a student at the University of Utah, she expressed feminist opinions and left one of the major political parties to register with the conservative Third Party. According to Facebook, she had actually started attending this university in 2014, and she is set to graduate in 2019, although her graduation date wasn't immediately clear. Kenzie was 700 miles away from home, living in Salt Lake City, Utah, attending college at the University of Utah, and she wanted to major in nursing. She also worked in a lab. According to one of Kenzie's friends, she says, quote, her family doesn't live here, so she's all on her own here. She said that she had a job and that she was going to school. She was like checking off everything that a responsible adult would have on their checklist, end quote. MacKenzie's extended family included her cat. Like many pets, Lueck's cat was part of her family. According to Kenzie's friends, Lueck had a very special bond with her fluffy black cat by the name of Nova. According to her friends, Kenzie would take her cat on hikes in the mountains on a leash. Nova was basically her everything. It was her companion. MacKenzie was adjusting to a different lifestyle, a lifestyle where she made the calls, and she was able to do what she wanted when she felt like it. June 10th, 2019, Mackenzie gets word that her grandmother passed away. Mackenzie absolutely adores her grandparents, and just before her disappearance, Mackenzie went home to El Segundo, California, for her grandmother's funeral. Her grandmother's name is Geraldine Walker Stevens. The funeral is held on June 15, 2019, and it's held at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Mackenzie wrote a very touching tribute to her grandmother on social media, and it read, quote, "I'm sure many have already heard, having gained an angel on Monday. My grandmother, Papa Jerry, was a hero to many. She was selfless and perfect. I never imagined this day coming, but heaven couldn't wait for her. I love you, and I'll see you in a lifetime," end quote. Just before the death of Mackenzie's grandmother, around June 3rd, Lueck is talking to a man that she meets on a dating site. Ayola, 31, and we'll refer to him as AJ. Also on June 4th, Mackenzie actually starts a different bank account. Mackenzie was actually spending a lot of time on these dating sites such as Tinder, Seeking Arrangements. And these apps such as Seeking Arrangements, they're dating websites where they seek wealthier men to pay for dates and sometimes even sexual intimacy. There was another one, Call Her Daddy, all of which that includes sexual conversation, photos, videos, date arrangements that Mackenzie had actually been involved in for quite some time. So it appears that Kenzie is living a double lifestyle, and the lifestyle that she chooses, it's almost like inviting something bad to happen. Kenzie is communicating with AJ electronically on several occasions, and it's shortly after her grandmother's funeral. Kenzie actually schedules a flight headed back to Salt Lake City, and that is June 17th of 2019. One thing that is certain is Kenzie has a bond with her parents, and it's one to where she communicates with them and lets them know that she's doing well. But on June 17th, something devastating had happened. Lueck's flight landed in Salt Lake City International Airport around 1:35 a.m. And as soon as she lands, Mackenzie texts her mother. It says, quote, "Landed. Love you, Mama," end quote. According to the warrant, she texted her parents around 2:01 a.m. that morning. But it seems that Lueck's parents would kind of get a hint that something would not be right. That's because Mackenzie's parents became suspicious that something was wrong when an iMessage did not go through to their daughter's phone shortly after she texted that her flight landed in Salt Lake City. Her father, Greg Lueck, noticed that his wife's reply, Diana, to Mackenzie, was green instead of blue, indicating that Mackenzie's phone wasn't on. She was out of service, or her iMessage was not working. Mackenzie wouldn't realize this, but airport security cameras capture her last hours as she got off the plane. She's pulling her luggage behind her, and she headed out to meet a man that she met on an app earlier that month. Mackenzie calls for a Lyft car, and it shows up around 2:40 a.m. and the driver drops her off at Hatch Park, north of Salt Lake, at around 2:59 a.m. And all they know at the time when all this is happening is that she got out of the Lyft car, then into an unknown man's vehicle. Mackenzie's parents said that they knew that Mackenzie planned to use a ride share such as Uber or Lyft to get a ride from the airport. But they wouldn't realize how important this information would be for later on. A maroon Subaru was already in the parking lot when the Lyft driver pulled up to Hatch Park. A woman gets out of the vehicle to greet Mackenzie. The two women seem to be quite friendly with one another. Around 3 a.m., June 17th or June 18th, Mackenzie is texting with AJ. What's important to note is the place that Mackenzie is being dropped off and picked up, AJ had actually lived in apartments not too far from there, but he was no longer living there during this time. To be exact, her last text to AJ was sent at 2:58 a.m. and it's about when she arrived at the park. AJ's phone was there at the same time as Mackenzie, and this would play a huge role in detectives' investigation later on. What's important to know is that just before 3 a.m., Mackenzie's cell phone was turned off. Approximately just a few minutes later, 7 to be exact, AJ's phone is back at his residence. Investigators suspect that AJ drove Mackenzie to his home, and it is speculated that he took her into a room that he rented out as an Airbnb. This room is located in the basement of AJ's home, and it's not known exactly what happened, but later on he would give an horrific detail of that night. And it's shortly after that that Kenzie's parents come very concerned about her well-being. And they come to find out that Mackenzie's phone is still not on. Jumping back a little bit to June 17th, that morning around 9 a.m., we learned that AJ purchased a gas can around 9 a.m. Later that day, a neighbor said that she detected a horrible smell coming from the backyard that belonged to AJ. And a neighbor also told police that they saw AJ actually using that gas can to burn something on June 17th and 18th. AJ had a few people staying at his Airbnb home, and one of them said, quote, Ayola had pallets and what he described as a white door on fire behind the garage. He said he stayed on the patio and he did not approach the fire. He said a neighbor lady then started yelling at Ayola and telling him if he did not put the fire out, she was going to call the fire department. The renter continued. He said he could not believe Ayola had ignited the fire in his backyard and that he went inside because he did not want to be involved with the incident. And this information was on a search warrant affidavit filed in the 3rd District Court. At this point, Kenzie's parents are becoming very concerned because now hours have passed and they haven't heard a word from their daughter. That is nothing like her. Not only that, June 18th come, and Lueck missed work at Mill Creek Medical Lab. She missed the midterm at her university, and not only that, no one could get a hold of her. At 4 p.m. Thursday, June 20th, MacKenzie Lueck's father has to do something he never expected or never thought that could happen to them. He picked up his phone to call police, and he has to report his daughter missing. And he has deep concerns for her well-being. So they call the Salt Lake City police, report their daughter missing. But at that time, police said there was no indication that Kenzie had been harmed or was in danger. Something we hear all too often with these stories. There is no one that knows their children better than parents. And like so many cases, like the Lori Vallow case with Charles Vallow, they reach out to police, but no one takes them seriously. At that point, Kenzie's parents decide to take things into their own hands. They take to social media. On one post on Facebook, they write, quote, "Mackenzie, if you can hear us, your family and friends are looking for you and are concerned for your safety," end quote. "Please reach out to anyone so we can get you home," end quote. At this point, the last text was the text that Kenzie had sent to her mother. The family continued to reach out through social media, creating several accounts and groups in order to try to find the missing Kenzie. One of those groups was called Find MacKenzie Lueck, which had more than 2,000 members, as well as a Twitter account that was created at Find MacLueck. But they had no luck contacting Mackenzie. It was as if she had disappeared off the face of the earth. Police actually opened up a tip line inviting help from the public, and MacKenzie Lueck's story starts to spread. According to later information, at least one man and possibly two were staying at AJ's house at the time that Mackenzie disappeared. One man, who was originally from Texas, said that he woke up on June 17th to find that AJ was already awake. In another description, he said that he walked outside to the driveway from the basement or the Airbnb apartment, and he mentioned that Iola was sitting on the trash can in front of an open garage next to his Kia Optima. He asked him if he knew how to get gas out of the vehicle. And he went on to say that he had been trying to siphon gas out of his car and that he had been unsuccessful. According to this guest account, AJ told him that he wanted to burn some pallets that were stacked against the fence in the driveway. AJ then proceeded to tell him that he had been up all night and was going on no sleep. According to the guest account, he said that he went with AJ to Smith's grocery store, where he purchased a gas can and filled it with gasoline. That's according to an affidavit. When they returned to AJ's house, the guest took a shower, but when he went back outside, there was a fire in the backyard. He said that AJ told him that he wanted to burn some pallets, and the same pallets that were stacked against the fence in the driveway. They also talked about the laws of burning stuff in a yard, and according to him, he talked to AJ about this and told him that he did not know how things were in Utah, but in Texas, they were not allowed to burn pallets in an open fire in their yard. He said he advised AJ if he wanted to discard the pallets, he should just break them apart and throw them away. At this point, police are starting to get deeper into this case, and they're learning a lot more information than when they first started. They actually interviewed the Lyft driver on June 21st. This is the person that drove Mackenzie to the North Salt Lake Park. And they find out that Lueck was actually met by a woman who helped her transfer her luggage into AJ's car. They also find out that the timeline of the Lyft driver makes him no longer a person of interest. June 22nd. This is around the same time that Lori Bello and them are going through what they're going through as well, so it's kind of interesting. June 22nd, sorry guys. City police are told by Mackenzie's father that she had actually booked a flight June 23rd to California, and she had done that with an unknown American Express card. And when police take a deeper look, they find out that that flight had been missed. Also, on June 22nd, police are catching on and following the digital footprints through social media and apps that Mackenzie is tied to. And one of the main focus are the dating apps that she had registered for. Like mentioned earlier, Mackenzie was very involved in groups such as Tinder, Seeking Arrangement, Call Her Daddy, and these all include sexual conversations, photos, videos, and date arrangements. They also find out that Mackenzie has a tie to AJ through one of those apps. She had actually been speaking with AJ through that app. Around that time as well, Mackenzie's father tells the police that he discovers his daughter had been using a credit card that he did not know she had. And that's according to warrants and affidavits. He finds out that she is indeed living like a double life. She has bank accounts he didn't know about, credit cards, and everybody knows what the Text Me app is for. He discovered that Mackenzie was using this Text Me, a third-party messaging application, on her phone. So we know that Mackenzie had missed a flight on the 23rd. The ticket was bought through Southwest Airlines. We're approaching a week, and still, no one has heard from MacKenzie Lueck. The reality of that was really hit home for Lueck's friends, and they were realizing that something was incredibly wrong. Though Mackenzie had been missing several days at this point, friends and family continue to hold out hope that she is still alive and well. Her case starts to draw more and more attention, and her friends start to talk with media, as well as reaching out through social media to the public, telling them that we're holding out hope that she is alive and well. One friend says, quote, "She's like a nurturer. She's almost a mother to me," says Kennedy Stoner. Mackenzie is just 23 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. But now, they have a lot of doubt and questions starting to manifest in the back of their minds. But they continue to put on that mask of strength. Police and investigators continue to work effortlessly around the clock, trying to locate MacKenzie Lueck. And it's over the next several weeks, police would piece together Lueck's last steps, ultimately arresting one man in connection with her disappearance. Police start gathering the phone records, and eventually those phone records will place a map and give them an idea of what really happened that day that she went missing. And the house that the phone is that belongs to AJ is traced to is his home at 547 North 1000 West in Salt Lake City. It shows his phone is there at Hatch Park early the morning of June 17th. June 24th of 2019, Salt Lake City police revealed to the public that Lueck took a Lyft car from Salt Lake City International Airport to Hatch Park, North Salt Lake. They also told the public that Mackenzie actually met someone in another vehicle around 3 a.m. While they're putting those pieces of the puzzle together, and starting to figure out what really happened. Investigators show up at Ayola's doorstep, and they have a photo of Mackenzie. They ask him if he had ever seen her before. According to the affidavit, he replied, no. Before police had shown him the picture, he actually denied knowing Mackenzie prior to seeing the photo shown by police. I don't think he realizes at this time, but phone records show otherwise. AJ tells detectives that he left his Wi-Fi open to the public because he operates an Airbnb out of his residence. They ask AJ if he minds if they look at his phone. And after they were given permission to search AJ's phone, police found an app called Seeking Arrangements installed on his device. Ironically, it's one of the same exact dating apps that MacKenzie Lueck used on her phone. There's something else police know. They know by phone records that the last person that Mackenzie communicated with using her cell phone was AJ. But he insisted he had no contact with the girl and never laid eyes on her. After speaking with AJ in his home, police and detectives pack up and leave his home. But shortly after they leave AJ's home, AJ contacted police to say that he received a text message from Kenzie's phone on June 16th at 6:12 p.m. It was a question mark. He responded with words, quote, seeking arrangement, end quote. He also sent a photo of himself at Mackenzie's request. If AJ didn't know who Mackenzie was, then why is he texting her? According to AJ, he says the communication between he and Mackenzie ended after that. But police knew better. They had actually found Kenzie's personal phone number saved in AJ's phone as an unnamed contact with the words, quote, text me, end quote. AJ makes a deal with police. He says, I'll let you extract information off of my phone, but I need to talk to my attorney first. And it's at that point that they really are able to put this together. They are able to forensically extract his cell phone information and find out his exact steps on June 17th, 18th, and so on. And police find out, comparing the two phones and their information together, that both phones were at Hatch Park at the exact same time. When the story first came out, they said that there were no security cameras at the park, that there were signs up saying there were security cameras, but they were fake. But new information says that investigators were able to get surveillance video, and that video showed a dark-colored four-door sedan leaving Hatch Park on June 17th, shortly after the Lyft driver drops Kenzie off. Detectives compared the vehicle on the video to AJ's 2013 Kia Optima. And according to investigators, the characteristics of the vehicle on the video are consistent with the shape, size, and general appearance of the Kia Optima. But who was the woman that the Lyft driver is talking about? If AJ is at Hatch Park, who is with him? Sadly, we really don't ever find out. On June 25th of 2019, there is quite a few things going on. The police are releasing video and images of Mackenzie at the airport, while Julian Cawley, which is a friend of Lueck's, visited Lueck's apartment after getting a call from Lueck's dad on Thursday. When she looks in Lueck's apartment, she finds out that there's no luggage, And she says she cleans up her room every time before she leaves, and it was perfectly clean, and everything was in place, just like she would have left it, end quote. Police have a close eye on AJ, and they are following him. AJ, the man who is a person of interest at the time of killing Lueck, he disappears on June 25th for a period of time, and we'll learn shortly where he disappeared to. So people involved with this case are doing a little background check on AJ, and they find out that he had actually written a book or a novel. The title is Forged Identity. It was sold on Amazon. The book with the title Forged Identity was sold on Amazon, but is no longer there. Anyways, he describes the protagonist, Ezekiel, as a teenager who must decide if he will join the ranks of the criminal mastermind or fight to escape the tyranny that surrounds his young life. It appears to be self-published, and some reader reviews suggest that it was poorly edited. But we're not here to talk about the reviews. We're here to talk about what they found written inside this book. AJ writes about a boy who witnessed an angry mob burn his neighbor alive. A boy named Ezekiel then again witnesses loved one killed in the same manner. So a lot of people think this is kind of ironic to this case. According to AJ, he claims that he was born and raised in Africa, and that he has been a salesman, an entrepreneur, a writer. He is from Nigeria, come to the United States, and studied at the Utah State University in the city of Logan. He was barred from the campus for several reasons, including problems with his visa and accusations that he had stolen an iPad. He was allowed back on campus 2015 after resolving his visa issues. A spokesman for the university said he studied computer science, but he did not graduate. And that isn't all. He had plenty of footsteps he left behind that were kind of questionable. In a statement, the North Park Police Department of North Logan, Utah, said that Mr. AJ once lived there and that he was investigated for rape, and that is in 2014. And it's shocking. I've done research on how many people come from other countries with these sketchy backgrounds and these warnings, yet they continue to stay here while they deport innocent people. It doesn't make sense. The system is just broken. But police were very unaware of just how evil and how dark this man's, his past would be. On June 26, police head over to AJ's residence where they serve him with a warrant. Once they give him the search warrant, you see them go inside his home, take his vehicle, and they search a 6 by 7 inch area in the backyard, which was covered in a thin layer of mulch. Now, this source says that a garden hose was dragged over to the area, and a piece of wood fencing had a smoke pattern in the shape of a wheelbarrow found in his garage. A neighbor told police, as we learned earlier, that she saw large flames and smoke coming from AJ's yard sometime the week before. And you hear the dates kind of change on when that happened. It was either June 17th, 18th, or 19th. The neighbor said that she actually witnessed AJ putting gas on the fire, dragging the hose towards the blaze, and making a phone call. She described the smell of this fire and smoke coming from the fire pit that he was burning in his backyard as something I've never smelled before. Police are seen seizing several electronic devices belonging to AJ, along with several charred items believed to belong to the missing girl, MacKenzie Lueck. Police also bring in certified cadaver dogs to search the property. According to investigators, the cadaver dogs immediately catch a sniff, indicating that there's something on that property to beware of. And the dogs lead them to a disturbed area in AJ's yard around 1900 hours. They describe in a warrant an alleyway runs behind the property, and items that appeared to be semi-burnt were located just on the other side of the fence of AJ's yard. The items that they found were black clothing and a possible strap from the purse or backpack that she was carrying, and images at the airport. The search on AJ's property ended up being quite productive. Anyways, the search yielded multiple bags of evidence being collected and some pretty condemning holes dug in the backyard near where the neighbors said they had observed AJ pouring gasoline on items and burning them. Remember in the photo at the airport, Mackenzie's wearing a black backpack, and authorities on the search on that property find some very condemning evidence. And it's written in the warrant that, this black strap seemed to be the strap that belonged to the compact backpack in black color in the airport surveillance. So this is one of the last times that Mackenzie is actually caught in a photograph, security footage, or camera. But police find evidence that is even more concerning. They find charred muscular tissue, part of a scalp with hair, a cell phone, and other charred personal items that was excavated in AJ's yard. That's according to charging documents. What investigators find is pretty damning, and this cadaver dog's hitting immediately as soon as it hit the property. Now this can get pretty gruesome. If you are not good with hearing those type of details, you might want to stop listening here. And that is because in one warrant it states that they found a rib bone and a small skull fragment, which we mentioned earlier. And among all that, they found several other items that's not listed. When police send this stuff to the lab, this is the final nail in the coffin. They develop a DNA profile and confirm that the muscle tissue samples taken from the backyard did belong to the missing girl, MacKenzie Lueck. At that point, it's going to be quite impossible for him to deny that he ever met her. It isn't just at random that her stuff and her DNA showed up at his home. Not only that, those charred remains that they find on his property has a witness saying that she's seen AJ put gas on the fire, dragging a hose towards the blaze, and making a phone call. And she describes there's this very strange smell, something that she had never smelled before. The electronic device information is piling up against him, and this DNA is just a cherry on top. Investigators spend hours on AJ's property, working, it's several hours from Wednesday afternoon into Thursday morning. They're searching it and conducting forensic tests, and it's on June 27th of 2019 that the Salt Lake City Police say that the owner of the Fair Park house is a person of interest. And they announced that they're needing the public's help to find a mattress that was given away on an online exchange platform. And just a few hours later, police located that mattress. There's no doubt that this investigation is a digital and forensic. And media news sites are covering this story from all over. Some of them reporting that as they looked into the backyard that belonged to AJ, they could see police were digging and that they had pop-up tents in relation to the missing 23-year-old. Investigators continue to collect evidence. They don't give up, even though they find several condemning evidence pieces. Police start checking into more tips, and they learn something that throws a red flag. They learned that just a few weeks before MacKenzie Lueck flew into Salt Lake City, they find proof of her and AJ talking several times before she disappeared. So now police are putting together a solid timeline. The phone that was texting on the Text Me app had a 206 area code. So they finally discovered that AJ knew her way longer than they even expected. MacKenzie Lueck is still missing, and they realize that not answering the phone is very, very unusual. So even if you're missing or you want to disappear, you have to turn your phone on to GPS. And articles start writing that the 23-year-old Lueck was not on an unknown face on the screen or newspaper page to her friends, as they hoped that this person that they knew as MacKenzie would be found alive and well. These friends spoke to Salt Lake City Tribune, and they remembered a woman who seemed to get along with everyone. One of her friends, by the name as Cara Barbie, said, quote, everybody gravitated toward her, end quote. She also said that she didn't know anyone who didn't like her. Kenzie's friends, during this process that their friend goes missing, is out there getting involved, handing out flyers and begging to the public to share any tip, no matter how big or small. But on June 28th, 2019, Salt Lake City Police announced something very devastating. A SWAT team arrests AJ in a downtown Salt Lake City apartment. He is booked on suspicion of aggravated murder, aggravated kidnapping, desecration of a body, as well as obstruction of justice. Police stand at the podium, detailing some of the evidence that they allow to the public, and state that they believe that Lueck is no longer here. There is more evidence that police know about that the public doesn't during this time. And so when they make that announcement, that was a little bit shocking because it happened so quickly. Not only that, is what else do they have that they're able to bring such charges? As far as we knew, all they had found was a few charred items. But where is her body? On June 25th, it seems that police were following AJ and that they had mapped him visiting a canyon, and it was located about 85 miles from Salt Lake City. So it seemed that police had got enough evidence to make an arrest, and they were fairly certain that they had a discovery to make and probably were searching the canyon area. The Lueck family reached out to the public, thanking the police department for their great work. They said, quote, the Lueck family would like to express their gratitude for the effort put forth by the Salt Lake City Police Department and partnering agencies who assisted, as well as all the people that provided tips on this case. They said that they were very grateful to her community, her friends, and the people around the nation who have supported this investigation. And they said that they would not be taking any questions and no interviews would be held. They suggest that inquiries should be directed to the Salt Lake City Police. And they weren't the only ones reaching out to the public to share how they felt during this horrible experience. MacKenzie friends start sharing and describing Lueck and what they meant to her. Friends describe her as an energetic and caring person who was always there for them. They say, quote, "I remember her as a ball of light." That's what she was. A blonde bubble of happiness, end quote. Michelle Garrison, a sorority sister, told a news source, quote, "I'll never forget seeing her face when she became part of our little family," end quote. Her sorority girls, the Omega, say that she was a nurturer. She was like a mother hen. And now, all that time that they spent searching for answers has finally come, and it isn't the answers that they were looking for. They say, "We hope that our Alpha Chi Omega sisters, who knew Mackenzie's best, can find peace and comfort as they reflect on the lasting impact she made on the lives of the family members, friends, and sisters." They also refuse to say the killer's name. Just days later, police make a report that they find a body in Logan Canyon, which is 85 miles away from AJ's home. The same canyon police have followed him to earlier. And around July, new evidence starts to surface. Police announced that new items of evidence related to the Lueck case were found in the Jordan River. So, according to the recently unsealed warrant, those items include Lueck's University Utah student ID card and multiple items of women's clothing strung along the bank of the Jordan River. And there was something strange about those clothes. They discovered that all the clothing that was found was cut with a sharp cutting instrument consistent with a knife, scissors, razor blade, something along those lines. So among those items recovered was a bra which had been partially burned and melted, and it was consistent with articles of clothing that were burned at the initial dig site, which was at the suspected person's home, AJ. So, around July 1st, they discover Lueck's body in Logan Canyon. And by July 15th, they have recovered the missing pieces of clothing, burned items that were kind of missing. And now the evidence is just overwhelming against this guy. As time moves forward, police are finding out that this guy, AJ, has a horrible background. Police released details of a 2014 rape allegation made against AJ by a female co-worker at Logan Financial Company. That same day, AJ's ex-wife, Tanisha Ayaya, gave an interview to a British tabloid, Daily Mail, and Salt Lake City's KUTV, saying that she had stopped talking to him years earlier. She says she did this because, quote, "I was fearing for my life," end quote. So after AJ's arrest, we're hearing this wife come forward and some allegations from the past. And also, on July 1st, there's a contractor that claims that AJ had contacted him to do his name is Brian Wolf. He said AJ reached out to him in April and wanted him to quickly build a soundproof room with a fingerprint lock. He also asked Brian to install what is called a head height hooks in the wall. He said, quote, he said that he wanted to sit in there and listen to music as loud as he wanted to, end quote. Wolf said he kind of refused to do this job. He thought it was strange and he just turned it down. And when he saw AJ's face and that he was being arrested, he said his heart just dropped. I'm sure for him in that moment, those hooks in the wall, the soundproof room, as well as the fingerprint lock started to make sense to him. On July 2nd, documents are released by the Utah State University that reveal that AJ had been barred from the Logan campus in 2012. And this is following a theft investigation. So at that time, the USU police suspected that AJ, a Nigerian immigrant, was overstaying his visa. He was seeking a wife to avoid deportation and might have been homeless and living in the building. So he just has a whole history, a very sketchy background, many signs, and here we have him fighting and conniving to stay here in the United States, even using an innocent American woman in order to do so, and the poor woman was fearing for her life the entire time. He had actually tried to hurt this woman, and she had to escape through a window. So the signs were all there. It's just our system wasn't able to recognize it before it was too late. July 3rd, analysis of AJ's cell phone records show it places him in Logan's Canyon June 25th between 2:30 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. And this is where we start to find out that's how they were able to locate Lueck's remains. But they really wasn't able to make that announcement until July 5th. And it wasn't until July 4th that they actually was able to move her remains out of the Logan Canyon area. Now, the Salt Lake City Police Chief, Mike Brown, he was not taking this so easy. This was a hard case for him. And he said in a news conference that he was relieved as well as grief-stricken. And they tell the public about what they found, but they tell them that they're not able to forensically confirm that it is Lueck until after all the tests. So around July 10th, the Salt Lake City District Attorney, Sim Gill, reveals that Lueck died from a blunt force trauma to her head. He also says that there has been no deals made with AJ on the aggravated murder, aggravated kidnapping, and desecration of a body and obstructing justice, at least at that time. Gill also tells the public that it's kind of premature to talk about the death penalty. So this is something he tells people, that this is an ongoing investigation, that this is going to take time. It's August 13th. Guys, the evidence continues to pile up against him, including new charges. So after investigators uncovered child pornography on AJ's personal computer, prosecutors actually end up charging him with 19 counts of sexual exploitation against a minor. And this is according to a press release from the Salt Lake City County District Attorney's Office. He is one sick individual, there's no doubt, driven by all the dark taboos available, it seems. And you would think that that would be the end of the rope for charges against this guy. But it isn't. August 20th. AJ is charged with sexually assaulting and kidnapping a woman he met on a dating app back in March of 2018. And so the evidence continued to pile against him. And it's just really hard. Just a horrid type of guy. How did he get away with this for so long? He had served the army for a short period of time. He was in our military, guys. He's around your children, your college students. He's marrying your daughters. It's just unfathomable. February of 2020, months after the death and kidnapping of Lueck, news sources begin to learn details that are even more shocking. On March 2nd of 2020, Deputy Salt Lake City County District Attorney Mark Mathis told Threes he and his colleagues need more time to sort through the evidence and hand it over to AJ's defense attorney, but didn't give any details on the new information. AJ appears in court a few more times, and for his preliminary hearing, AJ asked for an interpreter. Although AJ has written a novel in America, he's communicating on a regular basis online. He says that he's having difficulty following the terminology, I guess, in the court proceedings. He is a U.S. citizen now, but according to what I'm learning through some sources, as they say that he speaks and understands English, but he has trouble following what's happening in a longer or more complex hearings. He grasps the concepts after his lawyers explain everything that has happened. But even everyday Americans have trouble grasping everything in a court proceeding. But kind of interesting is he had been going through all his hearings for a year using English as the primary. And AJ has several cases pending. Now, AJ at some point decides to waive his right to a speedy trial or a preliminary hearing, and that is attached to a separate sexual assault case that he's facing. It's the victim of the 2018 assault that was submitted in the statement instead of testifying. At this point, COVID has hit the nation, well, the world, and it puts a damper on the court scheduling and proceedings. Most of the court appearances are done remote by video chat. In one remote session, AJ is wearing an orange jail uniform, a green face mask, black trim glasses, and he answered brief questions from the judge during the hearing. And AJ's attorney, Thrace, actually would pause the hearing so AJ could confer with his attorneys after he responded no when she asked him if he understood everything. And his attorney said that he was able to understand it more if they explained it to him. Some people feel as though AJ might have just been trying to make the process difficult. So at this point, the judge noted some languages, especially those based outside of Europe, may not have terms for legal conventions like jury trial, and interpreting might largely be an issue of explaining concepts. And the judge says that she is taking AJ's 4 defense attorneys at their word that their client only needed an interpreter for certain hearings, pointing to their experience. So, besides that case, and the case where AJ is actually charged with 19 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor, second-degree felony, they had found child images on AJ's device that they seized from the home during the investigation of the missing woman, MacKenzie Lueck. And when October ran around, October 8th, AJ decides to take a plea deal. And so part of that deal was pleading guilty to aggravated murder and the abuse and desecration of a human body. Aggravated kidnapping and obstruction charges were dropped, and he was able to escape the threat of the death penalty. It's during this time that AJ has to share or he does share some information that he had actually premeditated Kenzie's murder. And this is before they even met. Pretty damning evidence. And it's really at that point that a lot of people realize this is a very, very dangerous individual. And he is getting, he's showing the signs of, and the making of becoming a dangerous killer. At first glance of AJ, you would take him to be just this normal, everyday, decent person. He likes the spotlight. And behind that, he's a completely different man. When the door is closed, he took off his mask, and it displayed a deceptive individual who liked the hunt. The thing is, like so many cases that we are seeing today, he likes to hunt. So therefore, when he does catch his victim, he likes to use torture as a sexual pleasure. And he didn't really have a niche. He kind of went all over the place. This is including he desired children. So a lot of people suspect that he would have been a future serial killer. As MacKenzie Lueck's case moves forward, please continue to gather even more concerning information. And a lot of it is gained through electronics. And AJ had been using a stolen iPad. He obtained that at one of the colleges that he was shacking up in. And when police reviewed this iPad, they learned that he was using it to find a female as a prospect to marry to keep from being deported. AJ had actually married a woman by the name of Tanisha Jenkins. They have been married since June of 2011, and that's according to public records. They were married in Dallas, Texas. So the relationship between Tanisha Jenkins and AJ was a bit sketchy. According to public records, they married June 2011 in Dallas, Texas. But in media or quotes, Jenkins says that she hasn't lived with AJ in years. She said he threatened to kidnap her if she didn't move with him to Utah. And their marriage ended just quite recently. AJ was using the alleged stolen iPad at the time in 2012, and it still showed his relationship status as single even though he wasn't. And news sources such as KSL discovered on Facebook that AJ sent a message to a friend saying that he broke up just weeks before he was supposed to get married. This news source also discovered that AJ texted a woman he didn't know to ask her out. And a friend of that woman, it goes by the name Sarah, said that AJ obtained her friend's cell phone number through the church directory app. Sarah says, quote, "It's scary. It is really scary, and it makes me not want to trust anyone and not to use my apps or anything," end quote. Even more interesting is AJ is actually listed on the roster of the same Salt Lake City area mid-singles ward of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. And during that time, when he joined, AJ was still legally married. These messages showed up on a cell phone just 2 weeks before he abducted MacKenzie Lueck and murdered her. Sarah says, quote, "I was shaking when I found out. When I saw that, I knew he had asked my friend out, but I realized that it was all on June 5th. When that happened, it shook me and a lot of my girlfriends in the ward. Hey, I haven't talked to you at church. I'm just really shy. But maybe we can get to know each other and I can take you out." And she says her friend responds with, "No thanks." And learning this information just makes it easier to understand that he had already planned to murder Kenzie even before he picked her up at the park. But where MacKenzie met AJ on secret arrangements a dating website where wealthier men pay for dates, you would have thought that she would have done a little bit of research, which tells you that he was very good at deceit. And when AJ, 32, pleaded guilty, and according to a few news sources, Judge Thrace is expected to sentence him October 23rd to life in prison without the possibility of parole. It's been over a year and a half that Lueck's family has searched for answers and the disappearance of the death of MacKenzie Lueck. And according to a few news sources, they say, unlike most, the murder of the 23-year-old University of Utah senior, it wasn't tied to money, relationships, or revenge. That this horrible act was committed into desire and lust, most likely connected to the violent porn I speak about often. But Mark Mathis, the Salt Lake City District Attorney, he has a different suggestion. He says, quote, "The only conclusion that the evidence can suggest is that AJ simply wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone," end quote. So District Judge Thrace sentenced AJ to life in Utah State Prison without the possibility of parole, based on the terms of the plea agreement that spared AJ the death penalty. The judge said that AJ's crimes were one of the most egregious on the books in Utah. She also said he demonstrated cruelty and depravity in setting fire to Lueck's remains and burying them. According to a KSL story, Lueck's tearful family members recalled her Friday as a born nurturer, a spitfire, and an aspiring nurse. Her aptitude for the line of work was on display as she held her sick grandmother's hand in South California hospital, where the two said a final goodbye. They explained that Lueck brought feeling into a room no one else could. And the family said that they are comforted to know that AJ can no longer pose a threat to others. It was obvious they were still in mourn. They said, quote, "Instead of planning my daughter's graduation party, I planned her memorial," end quote. But MacKenzie's father has a little anger still floating on surface. Greg Lueck says that he hopes AJ will spend the rest of his life watching his back in prison. Quote, "I have no compassion for you, as you have no compassion for my daughter," end quote. So in addition to the murder charge, AJ has also pleaded guilty to the charge of abuse or desecration of a human body, which is a third-degree felony. And it's at that point that he admitted that after detectives investigating MacKenzie's disappearance knocked on his door, it's at that time that he unearthed MacKenzie's remains from his backyard and buried her again in the northern Utah canyon. We really didn't hear much details on this until lately. So when police arrived to the canyon, after following the GPS information off of AJ's phone, they find a charred body of the slain University of Utah student MacKenzie Lueck. They find her in a wooded area. Her arms are bound behind her back by zip ties and rope. They find a hole in her skull with part of her scalp missing, which they found in the burn pile before they found her in the canyon. According to the autopsy, she suffered a blunt force trauma to her head, which was the initial reason for her death, although AJ says later that that wasn't the only torture that she received from him. AJ had actually confessed in court that he had tied her up and began to choke her. She tried to stop him, after which he pulled the belt around her neck and pushed into her stomach and strangled her. So a very sad and tragic story. So the Lueck family actually asked Gil to send out a message. So the attorney representing MacKenzie, said he was overcome with emotion Wednesday as he said the Lueck's family asked him to thank, quote, the generosity of so many strangers and friends, the support and the prayers that have helped them through this very difficult time, end quote. They were not only going through a loss, they were also going through this thing where people were bullying MacKenzie for her lifestyle. Some saying that she asked for it. While we should promote to young women that if they go to these type of apps, that they're not asking for trouble, but other people are. It's a dangerous place out there for you ladies. I know that you don't understand the evil that lurks, but one thing that has always been is the predator is always masked. The wolf is disguised as a sheep. You just have to be careful, guys. Bullying women for their lifestyle is not acceptable, or anyone for that matter, if it's not hurting other people. This is truly a sad case, and this is one where a woman trusted somebody she had been talking to for a period of time, and it turned out to be her nightmare. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys soon.